Hello there, and welcome back to Bo&Joe, the podcast for the free-thinking working man and woman. I'm Bo.
I'm Joe.
And today we're going to have another guest speaker. So with us today is Ulysses. Now, Ulysses, for the sake of our audience and for brevity, are you okay with us calling you Yuli?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. So, Yuli, you are our second guest star on the Bo&Joe show. That makes you among the elite.
That's a star, maybe, I guess.
I guess, maybe, yeah. Maybe someday.
Awesome name.
That is a pretty cool name. So that. When I first met you, your name being Ulysses really took me by surprise. I've never known anybody named Ulysses, but everybody in history with Ulysses has like this massive beard, just radiates the South.
You thought he had a beard?
I thought he had a beard.
I super thought he had a beard too.
So that's weird, but so Yuli, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
You guys recently had my fiance on, and
right.
So
and for clarification, Pepper
that was
Pepper.
Your
right.
Yeah. I'm also from Virginia. My name actually stems from Odysseus from the Iliad. My father was really big into Greek mythology, and he named me Ulysses. And then every now and then he was kind of going back and forth. He was like, yeah, you were named after Ulysses Grant. But then he would always say, no, it's something about the Trojan horse. And I was like, yeah, that's Odysseus. and he's like, yeah. And so that's how I got my name.
So growing up, was it hard to have a name like Ulysses is a very powerful name. Did you have any issues like kids not being able to pronounce it or understand? Well, obviously, younger kids wouldn't know where it's from, but
people kind of had the same reaction as you guys did. Even teachers, when they go, "Hey, Ulysses," and then they see the last name, and they're like, "Whoa, that guy's not white?"
Right.
The reverse is they also
great point.
A lot of the kids did not know who Ulysses was also until you learn about presidents, which is like, the second or third grade.
Right.
And then you actually don't know about anything like the Iliad or the Trojan War until like maybe seventh grade. And they're like, oh, yeah, your name's so cool now. Before, they're just like,
cool.
Yeah, they're just kind of like, oh, this is a very hard name. And it's not Chris, not Bruce, not something normal.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Or Charles.
Or Charles.
Yeah.
Or Joe.
Or Joe.
Yeah.
So no, that's a great segue. So for the folks who don't know you, you are of Laotian. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Laotian. So Laotian descent. You and I have shared a few stories in the past where you've told me some of your childhood, and I would really like to get some of that here for our audiences. I don't think many people are. Let me rephrase that. I don't think many people know any Laotians, or not many. So I'm curious as to, for our audience sake, if you would share some elements of your upbringing, some things that you experienced.
Yeah. So the biggest thing about Laotians, normally we're not recognized. Usually people go, oh, you're from Laos, and they'll say, where is that from? And you can be like, okay, Southeast Asia. The next part, it's kind of like, okay, if you say that, they're like, oh, I thought you were Cambodian. I thought you were Vietnamese. I thought you were Thai. Pretty much nobody really knows who we were. Then that show with the rednecks came out, King of the Hill. And all of a sudden, everybody knew who Laotians were or something. Okay. But it was a joke. It was just more like, oh, well, we know you're definitely not Chinese. We definitely know you're not Japanese now. But what are you? And I'm like, well, I'm Laotian. And it just became a joke in King of the Hill. And that's how a lot of people recognize us now.
So I've seen maybe one or two episodes of King of the Hill. What happened there that put you guys on the proverbial map?
It was just a joke. It literally. Just
a one-line joke?
Yeah, it was literally the rednecks kept on going, are you Chinese or Japanese? And the guy was like, no, I'm Laotian. And they're like, they reiterated the joke. Yeah. It was like, okay. But it was just because nobody knew where Laos was, and I guess somebody decided this would be funny.
Well, I guarantee you that there's a number of people on this that are listening to this podcast that have no idea where Laos is. You want to tell them?
See, it's Southeast Asia, right above Vietnam. I think below Thailand. Again, I haven't looked at the map in a while. we're landlocked in between those countries. I mean,
Myanmar, right?
Yeah.
Myanmar? Okay. That's been in the news recently, hasn't it?
Myanmar, it used to be Burma, right?
Yeah. Burma. Used to be Burma. And I think they're having a big political, change and structure change.
I remember reading something about it.
So a lot of that area is doing that a lot. Like, there's a big growth going over there, and just
a lot of conflict, right, in that area. Even
it used to
Laos,
be. It used to be. Yeah. So like when you were talking to my fiance, like Liberia, Laos also had a civil war. So during that civil war, my grandfather was actually part of the government, and because he was part of the side that wasn't doing the coup, we had to flee. So that's pretty much why I'm here in America.
Now, when they fled, how young were you?
I wasn't born yet.
Okay, so you're a product of...
I'm a first generation.
First gen. That was the word I was looking for. Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. And growing up in a Laotian household, did you ever have those moments where it was very clear that you were not like the other people? As far as like the traditional white children or American in general?
Yeah, I mean, it felt like that sometimes, but when we were younger, my parents kind of tried to force us to be more American than we were Laotian.
Okay.
So, I mainly spoke Laos when I was younger, Laotian, to my parents. And there was a point where my father even told me, you should only speak English and speak to me in English. So to keep it more so that we would more fit in America. My mom wasn't so much as educated as my father, I want to say. So she always tends to speak mainly Laotian to me, but she can speak English now. It was mainly taught write in English, learn English, just make sure you're more American instead of taking in our culture unless you're at home. It was like everything you portray out there, you're American. You're born here, you live here, be American. Everything in the house, this is Laotian food, this is Laotian culture, this is, try to, so it's a balance. So it's like you're asking, it's kind of both.
So and I'm about to ask you to make a guess on your father's mentality, but for your father, did he want it to be easier for you guys to integrate with American society, or was there something about Laos that he was trying to move away from?
I think it was more integrating for us to American culture. It wasn't so much like I don't want to be Laotian or anything. It was, you're here now, take in the culture, understand how people think, how people act, how people live. We don't live the same way when we're over there.
Right.
And so it was more of that, just the integration.
Okay. Now you had told us in a previous conversation, or at least myself, I don't remember if Joe was present, but you had mentioned that Laos has a ton of unexploded ordnance.
Yeah, there's a couple of videos now, and a lot of people I think now know about it, but I don't know what the actual data is, right? But Laos was the most heavily bombed area. They were just, this was during, I think, the Vietnam War,
okay.
And they were just lighting up and releasing as many bombs as possible just because they were told to not come back with them.
I see.
And they just let them all go.
And that was from every side, or from the Americans, or?
That was pretty much the Americans. It might be every side, I don't know, but mainly the Americans.
Landmines too, right? There was a lot of landmines.
Yeah.
Man, okay. Well, let's see. I admit that I know nothing about Laos. I've heard the name prior to making your acquaintance. I've heard the name a few times, maybe in movies or in passing for whatever reason, but I've never known or spoken or had a personal relationship with anybody from Laos. So this is fascinating for me in that regard. Joe, do you have any?
Yeah. I have a friend who's married to a Laotian. But apart from that, man, there's one thing that I did want to ask you, because it's something for me personally that I kind of challenging. when you moved over, did you notice, like, I know you were young, obviously you were great at you were born into the culture, but from the perspective, at least of your parents, do you see them as seeing some type of an American culture? Because sometimes, from a lot of people that are immigrating or emigrating into the States, a lot of the times they tell me that it's hard to, put a finger on the actual American culture itself. That it's something that's kind of fluid in a way, not something as like the Laotian culture or I don't know, pretty much any other culture, like a Hindu culture, or you know what I mean. Like there's
this lack of history,
right?
To the culture.
Yeah. So it's a lot more fluid. Did they ever have? I mean, the reason I'm asking is because it's interesting that you said once you're here, try to appropriate into this and try to get into that. Maybe they had some I don't know, hindsight on that. I don't know. That's a very weird question.
It is pretty weird question.
I think it's still to appropriate was the right way to go, because it's like to make it in this country, you should know how the country works and all that. So I mean, it's not so much culture; it's more how are we going to survive in a country that we have no clue about.
Okay.
And my dad he worked when he first came here, he worked a waiter job. These were kind of jobs he was going to get. Even if he was college educated, this is the jobs he was going to get here to start with. Because we have no real way to prove that,
you're
educated. And so this is the kind of jobs you get. And that's still a lot of the ways where a lot of people migrate here, and this is where they start. They start really low. You can be a doctor in any other country and just come here and be like, well, you're going to have to work this. And your credentials almost mean nothing unless you're in more Western civilized, cultures.
Right.
So, I mean, for them, I think this was the way to make sure that as first generations here, we would be educated and grow up to become at least middle class or something better than what they were here. As far as it goes back to Laos, my parents were probably technically middle class.
Okay.
But coming here, they knew that they wouldn't be just right off the bat middle class.
Now that's a pretty ballsy decision, knowing what it was going to mean for your life.
Yeah.
But realistically, again, you're in a pretty good position. You're arguably upper middle class.
Mm-hmm.
And I've met some of your family who are the same. And it was clearly a good decision, but I understand he recently passed. And I'm sorry about that, but I want to say that mad props to that man for making what is arguably the hardest decision people will ever have to make.
And again, it's a forceful decision, but I mean, there is a big decision. He could have stayed.
He could have gone anywhere.
Yeah, he could have gone technically anywhere. Yes, he was forced out of the country technically, and it's either like death or move somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Where he moved could be anywhere, right? He could have stayed. Actually, my dad was educated in France.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we could have been in France.
Mm-hmm. Educated in France? That's unusual.
Yeah, because a lot of the studies for universities and stuff in Laos, they try to push you to different countries so that you're more Western civilized educated, or where more money would be, I guess. So I've gone back to Laos twice. I've met a few of my cousins there, and some of them were learning in like Japan, China, Australia, just all over the place, right? Like, because they know Laos was not really big on opportunity in terms of internally. Like, you wouldn't get like a really high paying job. Like, even if you're like, say, a doctor, a dentist, engineer. I mean, these are like really high paying jobs almost anywhere outside in the Western civilization. But in Laos, it's like, you're just making a living. So
there are a lot of and I'm asking because I don't know, but I know that in India, like, engineering degrees and whatnot are handed out pretty fluidly. Is that the same situation in Laos? Not necessarily engineering, but
I believe it's not internally, so everybody's spreading out to get those type of degrees. Like, if you want an engineering degree, you may go to Japan. Programming degree, you may go to China.
Do they come back to Laos?
A lot of them do go back to Laos. Some people, if you want to make more money, obviously you have to go stay out of Laos. That's what I'm saying.
So you've been back twice. And what is your opinion of Laos at this point?
So when I was younger, I was back twice. So when I was really young, which was like around 13 years old, it was very eye-opening. The first time I went there, they didn't have a regular toilet that we're used to. So it was like, I used the restroom, and I was like, Mom, how do you flush this thing? And she was like, oh, she just like waved it off like it's nothing. She walked over there, she's like, all you do is scoop this bucket of water up and pour it in there. I'm like, is that gonna work? like, does this work? And like, sure enough, you pour it in there, it goes down the drain, fine. I'm like, dude, this is like weird, but seems way more intelligent than what we're doing at home by pushing the flushing toilet because it gets clogged all the time.
Yeah, sure.
And just from that, it was a different experience, and it opened my eyes to a lot of just like normal living stuff that we have, and I appreciated more coming back home. I was like, toilet, this is nice. Then again, I went back 3 years later, which was, so I was 16 then, and they had toilets and everything, so I was like,
so it modern or westernized, I think is the word.
It seemed very modern there. And I think we were discussing some of that, poverty points. Maybe off camera or off. But,
sure.
Like, Joe was saying some people were giving poor people stuff and there's fights and there's like lack of
They almost kill each other for food.
Yes.
Right. Extreme poverty.
So we went to the Golden Triangle, which is Thailand, Laos, and Burma or Myanmar connected. And there was a ton of poor people. And the first thing my mom actually told me was, don't give them anything. And I was kind of surprised at that because I feel coming to Laos, I had tons of money technically.
Right.
I was like, why wouldn't I give them anything? And my mom was like, you have to be careful because there's not just one of these, not one person here. There's like a band of people, like maybe hundreds. And I was like, okay, it didn't make sense to me. I felt it was the wrong thing because I did have more money, and I was like, I should give to some of the unfortunate people. Right. But my older brother actually gave a piece of candy and he only had like bag of candy, like 5 or 6 pieces. He gave a piece of candy to this poor little girl, and then like hundreds of them started swarming him, and he was like, oh, I don't have enough candy, and he started walking back, and we kind of walked away and like moved away from it, and I understood now how dangerous it was too. And I was like, wow, so I get what my mom was saying, but I still felt, how terrible this this was, just as an incident, or not an incident,
a reality,
experience. And
it's really unfortunate that now that I think about that, obviously I've never been in a situation like that, but as I think about it, how difficult of a scenario that's going to be when the government, if ever, tries to rectify that. If you can't depend on the kindness of strangers, as the Southern adage goes, then what? I mean, I don't understand. I have no fathomable explanation on how you could fix that as a country, or that's multiple countries, obviously. I have no idea, and I doubt that many of our listeners have ever been in a similar situation, or probably even heard of that.
Yeah.
So that's to use a Joe word, that's horrific.
Yeah, horrific, and it gives perspective. Right?
It really does. It truly does. Now, you said the last time you've been back was 16.
Yeah.
Have you not been inspired to go back in the last 10 plus years?
I've been kind of pushed more by Pepper, can I say, to go back to see it. And again, we have, it's weird that we actually have very similar cultures, Liberia and Laos, and even like our parents are very similar. And we've made these same similarities to each other, and we're like, man, we're the same country. But so I mean, there is a push. I haven't been in a while. There is some very beautiful places, and then there's the city, and it's just the city. So yes and no. I think there's other places I'd rather go first than return there.
Like where?
Japan's a big thing. I'm very into anime, the culture I want to know more about, you know. So Japan's a big place for us, and well, for me. And then you guys know already, I'm gonna go to New Zealand in January.
Meet some Kiwis.
Yeah.
Meet some what?
Kiwis.
Oh, I thought you said Chiwis. I was like, I don't want to say that.
No, Kiwis.
Yeah, no. Okay, I was like, oh my god. No, that's so I didn't know you were into the anime culture. I mean, I've known you for a little while, about as long as I've known Pepper, maybe a little longer, and for strange reasons. No, but I've never known that about you. Like you've never, in my experience, people who are really hardcore into anime have a very different kind of personality, very different mannerisms. You've never given me that inclination.
I mean, I'm into some of the storytelling and other aspects, just like you are with certain books, and Joe is with his books.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of storytelling that I think is very thought provoking in there. So I mean, we've discussed about virtual reality.
Sure.
Have you guys ever seen Sword Art Online?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's all about Dream Gear, and then you can just immerse yourself. I mean, recent movie with
Ready Player One?
Yeah, Ready Player One. Yeah. I mean, that's the further step past Ready Player One, right? Like immersing yourself in a whole dream sequence of games.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of those thoughts are really crazy. And then there's also fun stuff, fantasy stuff.
Yeah.
Silly things like cooking, I guess. And anybody's watched Shingeki no Soma, it's a cooking one. It's silly.
I've heard that a lot of people are ashamed to admit that they like that show.
Why?
Because it's about cooking.
What's bad about that?
It's not that it's bad, but typically if you look at animes are usually about high school or about
like
fantasy or sports.
Okay.
The fact that one came out, it's simply about cooking.
Yeah.
It's not fabulous. It's not exciting. It's just about cooking, and it's got one of the. So for our audience, I do want to take a step back though. You said Sword Art Online, and for our listeners, Sword Art Online is a story about a company that makes a virtual reality product that once you put it on, kind of locks you into a fantasy world, and you're stuck there. And it's pretty interesting. I've seen a couple episodes. A couple of my friends think it's really great, and I'm iffy on a lot of anime. Typically, if they have like children stars, it usually doesn't appeal to me. But Sword Art Online was pretty good.
Can I interject here? So one of the things that I noticed when I was younger, there was very little manga where I grew up, but there was one store. Yeah, very very little anime, very little manga. There was one store that had probably the best collection. It was a person who frequented going to Japan, and I do remember that the only time I remember going there when I was very very young, and the first time I took one of them, I was like, what the heck? Because the writing was very complicated. Like, it's actually very it's very eloquent, it's actually deep, very deep in a lot of regards, depending on what you like, of course.
A lot of it is actually researched and take it that low.
Exactly. So I thought it was actually pretty cool. It's completely different. Like, I started like the Isao Miyake. Yeah,
Miyazaki.
Why does that sound familiar?
Studio Ghibli?
Yeah, Howl's Moving Castle,
I got you.
Castle in the
Studio
Sky.
Ghibli pretty much sums that up.
I mean, they're pretty deep and not just deep, they're very, very good. How can you say this?
Now, this is a generalization, mind you.
Yeah. I'm just saying in general, like, I was so surprised because I had never seen that, and it's completely different in the way they present it, but I guess it's because of the culture, But I think that's primarily, especially in Japan, that's what the form of entertainment that predominates, right? Manga more than anime itself.
I don't know I don't know. I can honestly say I've never been in Japan, so I don't know.
Me neither.
No, I've never been in Japan. I've been on the outskirts, but never actually in.
Okinawa?
So
something?
yeah, exactly.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh right, military.
Yep. In the airport.
No, we were part of a tour and we got to stay in the harbor and go and see a couple of the buildings close by, but I never actually got to go in.
Oh.
So, and go into like a proper city or anything.
The producer just pointed out that a lot of people read in the train, the manga.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I will say that my wife she's pretty, I don't want to say hardcore into manga because that would be an unfair assessment, but she did just discover and finish a series that was about the warring states. And she learned like so much about different characters and how incredible tacticians they were back then, even for having been ancient times. Like they did things that are still being emulated today. So that's a fascinating thing, and we could probably talk for hours about anime and manga and things like that.
Yeah. Ever heard of Miyamoto Musashi? Right, Miyamoto Musashi. You know about Miyamoto Musashi, right?
Who's that?
So long story short, he was the youngest, bastard son of a samurai, the first, quote unquote samurai, warrior to use two swords. But, more than anything, he was a brilliant, tactician. He wrote a book called The Book of Five Rings. And man, his story,
That's interesting.
His life story is amazing, man.
I'll have to look into it. There's for a lot of our listeners know that I partake sometimes in Dungeons and Dragons, and there's an entire expansion that's called Legend of the Five Rings. I've never understood what it was about.
Oh wow!
Now I feel inclined to read up on it. That's pretty interesting.
The guy was so brilliant, man. Like one of the battles that he had was this one dude who was much taller than he was. So on the way, and this sounds like a movie, on his way, because he lived in an island, on his way to the island, he used an oar and he fashioned the sword out of the oar because he knew that he was at a how do you say, a disadvantage? Yeah, exactly. So he was at this disadvantage, so he had to fashion a better weapon, and he did it so of the oar, and he fought and he won. So basically, because of his feeling of I guess, I don't know what the right word is, but he was a bastard son, right? So that meant in that place that he was basically nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he had to prove himself. So the way he was proving himself was going throughout all of the different master samurais and beating them. Yeah.
It's many movies have been created on Kung Fu the same.
Yeah, so it's a cool story.
Probably mainly from him. Any swordsman movie that you've seen, he's usually the main inspiration for it.
Interesting.
And he's very young, man. Like he started doing that, I think, 17 or something.
And what's his name?
Miyamoto Musashi.
All right, for our listeners, you guys should check that out. I'm going to do the same later.
Yeah.
Great. Where did we leave off? We left off with you talking about an eventual trip to Japan. And I've always wanted to do the same, so I would love to do that at some point. My wife, on the other hand, I think would struggle with a lot of the food.
My fiance may too. But.
Hey, there's McDonald's, man. I mean,
yeah, I've heard that, but do you really want to go to Japan and eat McDonald's?
I mean, maybe, but
my wife probably would.
I mean, I would like to try it. There's probably different stuff.
There's a lot of differences in culture and stuff that you'll see in McDonald's, so it's still an experience. It might not be the one you technically asked for, but you could still, you might get like some kind of squid burger.
I think you can, actually, but that's a whole different conversation. Now, this isn't racially inclined, but do you speak Japanese?
I do not.
Are you going to practice or learn some before you go?
We tried.
Yeah.
There are actually, I think, different dialects.
Yep.
And I think there's different writing styles. So I think we were trying to learn hiragana at one point, and then that just kind of tapered off and fell off.
It's kind of difficult. I did the same, and there's a lot of apps you can find on the Play Store that are helpful.
Yeah.
But it is for us Americans, we only have 20, I'm about to sound stupid, 26 letters. I always get that mixed up because there's.
Oh, okay. See what you mean.
Yeah. I always mess up, but
that's all right. No, I get it.
So, but we have 26, and hiragana and katakana have so much more.
And the characters.
And right. And it's so much more involved.
And they can mean the same word or mean the word differently. And,
exactly. And the way you enunciate changes various parts of it.
There's kind of the funniest thing, like a lifetime ago, I used to work at a bookstore at Borders, and I remember there was a book called Making Out in Japanese. And I'm not kidding. It's very old. There's many different versions of it for Japanese, German, Spanish. But what's cool about it, really, like, it's really, really cool. It's conversational Japanese, conversational German, conversational Spanish. So it's, if you had to bring one book with you, I'm just as a suggestion, because I've always wanted to go there too. I'm very stingy about food, as you know. But still, but still, I'd like to experience the culture. But if I would ever go,
that'd be a good way for you to lose some weight.
I mean, but if I ever wanted to, I mean, and when I do, I'm going to get that book because it's just conversational stuff. So if you want to have a quick communication with somebody, it's not just about like hooking up with people. It's more conversational Japanese. It's just kind of funny.
Conversation is also different when like a lot of the Asian cultures, like there's little nuances that like you would use instead of just like when you learn, hi, I'm blah blah blah, right? There's a lot of other things that are culturally like little nuances that you're like, oh, that guy's really from here. Oh, that guy is he learned from a book.
Sure, yeah.
So, and that in America we would call it equate that with an accent.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Segue. What is your personal favorite anime?
My personal favorite anime is One Piece.
I've never seen it. Describe for myself, for Joe, and for the audience. What's it about?
One Piece is pretty much a journey, a journey across an ocean and sea where Luffy, the main character, wants to become Pirate King.
Oh, cool.
And it's, for a lot of people, they hate it because it seems very cartoony and kiddish in the beginning, but there's a lot of different story elements that appear, and overall, I think right now, if you're a new person, and unless you have a lot of time to invest in it, because there's 860 episodes, I think, in the anime, it might be running towards the longest anime now. I think initially my original first was Hajime no Ippo, which was just a boxing anime.
Okay.
Was a series that was running pretty much like for 15 years.
Wow.
I think One Piece is now running maybe 17 years or something like that.
Oh my god.
So I'm curious about a lot of what you just said, so I'm going to try to package that in. How does one person who wants to be a Pirate King make a show last for 800 episodes?
So the original premise was there was an original person who found One Piece. He became...
What is One Piece?
You don't know. Oh. It's okay. A special treasure that's somewhere hidden in the world that if you find it, you will be technically the Pirate King because you're the only one that has... You've navigated to a place that almost nobody can get to.
Okay.
With that the main character... the original Pirate King, on his dying words in his execution, said, I found this place. If you want to, become Pirate King, go look for this, go look for it. And that sparks a whole, like, new generation of younger people wanting to become Pirate King. So they become pirates. And then there's essentially the law that's there too, that's been there now, which are the Marines. Sure. It's weird that they're called the Marines because, obviously Navy is, but they're called the Marines. So that brings a show with a back and forth. And like I said, it's a journey. You can get on a boat, travel to different islands. There's tons of different, story elements that you can put in there.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to ruin anything, so I'm just saying you would just have to watch it again.
I'm interested in giving it a try. I am daunted by 800 episodes.
Yes.
And I can't jump in. A lot of people say you can, like for Star Wars Rebels, skip the first season. I can't do that. And it's terrible, but. So no, that's interesting. So what about your least favorite anime?
My least favorite anime?
This is where you're going to make some enemies online.
Well,
friends.
Or friends, yeah.
Least favorite anime?
Tough question, huh?
Yeah.
If you can't pick a least favorite, you can throw out some that you didn't care for. I don't mean to put you that hard on the spot, but I do.
I can make a bunch of people mad right here.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna drop, like, Naruto as my least favorite right now.
Okay. Is there a reason why? That's one of the more successful ones. I know it's about ninjas.
Yeah, so that's pretty much why it's successful, right? Yeah. Anybody that draws anything around ninjas, people are gonna love.
All right. So we need ninjas on this podcast.
So to do the back and forth, for the reason why I love One Piece so much is there's so many story elements and there's so many little tidbits in those story elements that, starts you can be watching episode 50 and all of a sudden watching episode, say, 500, and that character from episode 50 comes out and returns and becomes a big part of that whole show.
Okay.
And if you just stuff like that. Naruto, it was kind of like, here's a character, he's cool, okay, here's another character, he's cool, and we're gonna go do something. They didn't really follow any kind of like story line all the way down, and I know a lot of people are gonna be like, yeah, the storyline's, and you're like, no, dude. The storyline was the dumb ninja over here wanted to become essentially the same thing, a pirate king, but the Hokage, the Hokage, the Fire Shadow, who was the leader of their ninja clan. But there was no like, he was trying to become that, but there's no like steps for him to become that. It was more like, if I fight enough times, eventually I just get anointed Hokage because I'm the strongest, or I may have been, I'm the strongest.
So the reason why I've never got into Naruto is all the pictures I've ever seen of it, the boys look like they're about 13.
They are 13.
And that's what I say. I can't watch an anime where a child has superpowers. I was really destroyed when I tried to watch Neon Angel Evangelion, and in the first episode, the main star is like a 12-year-old boy, and he cries about his father not loving him for literally half the show.
You didn't like?
And I could not deal with it.
Yeah, you have to get past a lot of that.
Yes. I've heard that it's good, and it was admittedly a decade ago when I tried to do that. But I'm going to lose some potential fans here when I say that my least favorite anime of all time is easily Dragon Ball Z. So, every episode is about a dude charging up for 4 episodes.
I can agree with you in that standpoint. But as a kid watching it, charging up was pretty cool to a kid.
Really? Charging up was cool? It was like, oh, cool, I get to watch him do this next year.
Especially the 11 episode fights. That was anticlimactic, but
yeah, it's like how.
But it was cool.
One Piece has not so much the charging up part, but has like 11 episode fights. But I think that's because at the time when the manga was really young, you had to try to stretch the anime out a little bit. So
that probably is true. I've heard from a lot of people that I should give Dragon Ball Z a new chance with the abridged versions, or some of the
Super is not actually that bad. Dragon Ball Z Super is not actually bad. There is a little bit of story element. But yes, it's still a lot of the charging up, power up, fighting stuff.
So I naturally have an issue. I remember my sister who absolutely loves Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. So you can imagine growing up, I beat her a lot.
Now I get where the hatred stems from.
Yeah. No, actually, the truth be told, I don't remember how old I was, but I was in my late teens, maybe early 20s.
Yeah.
And I was working at a video store, and they let us take a tape home, or back then when it was tapes. And, God, I feel old now.
Yeah, it happened. But, I remember.
Yeah, so I would take... Exactly, yeah. I took a tape home, and it was a Dragon Ball Z tape, and I watched it. I have this thing where I will sit through anything to completion. And even if it's trash, because I feel like I need to give it a full chance. I sat through that tape of Dragon Ball Z. Apparently Goku had died, and it was a gold case, but he was in heaven or something. He was riding clouds.
Nimbus?
I honestly don't know.
He's always had Nimbus. But Dragon Ball.
At the end of the day, I sat there and I literally said, what the fuck did I just watch? I don't even know, and this was the worst hour, whatever I've had. I literally threw the tape in the trash with the design. I was going to take the fee.
Wow. That is a bold statement.
I know. That's how impassionate I was about it. My sister snuck in, borrowed the tape from the trash, and watched it 17 times or something in a row. She loved it. And from that point on, she was a huge DBZ fan. And I remember walking past her TV once. Goku was fighting, I think, Vegeta, and I hate that I know these people.
There you go.
But they were fighting, and a one-armed Piccolo was going like this with his fingers on his forehead, going, "Keep fighting! I'm charging up." And I was like, "Trash, absolute trash." And I'm pretty sure that beating was severe that I gave her.
Oh,
but I was not a good brother in my youth.
Have any of you seen Gilgamesh? The anime Gilgamesh?
I tried to watch Gilgamesh because I read the book Gilgamesh when I was younger. I thought it'd be really good, but the artwork is so artsy that it's hard for me to watch it.
Yeah.
Like they use a lot of that.
I haven't heard of Gilgamesh.
Anime. It's an anime.
I mean, I've heard of Gilgamesh, the actual historical figure. Yeah. But is the anime about him?
The anime is about the same story, I believe, but done in a different fashion.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned.
Well, I'm going to lose a couple more when I say that I'm also not a huge fan of Studio Ghibli.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't appreciate that art style.
Okay, but okay. I need to understand. I mean, you're a person that is, in my mind, you love storytelling.
I do.
You love stories.
I do.
Studio Ghibli has good stories.
So I've never seen to completion any of them because I don't like the animation. Oh, it is that big a deal for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
So I've seen the start of Princess Mononoke, which I know was huge here in America. Huge. And after 10 minutes, I was like, it's headache inducing for me.
Really?
And then I tried, one of their older ones, Kiki's Delivery Service. And I was like, I would rather eat rocks. So, and speaking of eat rocks, I never finished that one either. So that one is what, the Grave of the Fireflies.
I mean, if you can't, Grave of the Fireflies is pretty much a historical piece kind of thing.
No, I can appreciate the stories. It's the artwork I can't get past.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's surprising.
It is surprising. I admit it's my fault.
I would assume that, watching Princess Mononoke, you should be able to get through that because that movie is really good.
It was just weird. It was just bizarre.
If not, you might want to try Nausicaa of the Wind. Because that's more probably up your level of like fantasy stuff.
But is it the same artwork?
It's the same art studio. But again, you may be able.
I know they're all hand drawn. I know that, so I won't take away their power. Like I understand their relevance. It's just I struggle so hard.
Again, Princess Mononoke really, I would think, would be able to capture you. But if it did not, I would say try Nausicaa of the Wind. It might be more. It's closer to sci-fi stuff, and
is it violent?
Sometimes, not always.
See, for anime, I prefer ultra violent. So like
Berserk.
Berserk, yes, I have not finished Berserk, but I want to.
See, that's the thing.
Ninja Scroll, one of the classics.
If you can't handle that art style, can you handle Berserk's newest art style?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I can't handle computer generated like that. I really dislike it.
Mm-hmm.
The comic is phenomenal. The manga, I should say. I didn't get fully through it all. Mm-hmm. My fiance actually did. She left me behind. I was at like 366, and I think now it's at like 500 something. So it's hard to get back into stuff like that when there's a lot.
So far ahead, man.
Yeah. Again, to me, I think something can catch your eye more with Nausicaa.
So I was just handed this article of anime called Ajin Demi-Human.
Yeah, that's another anime series, Ajin.
It looks. She sent me the picture. She handed me to me is kind of grotesque.
Yes,
so I might have to watch
it. You might end up liking. Now what's it called?
Now see, to be fair, I grew up on regular American cartoons, which have all but faded now because most of the cartoons that are out are going Japanese style, animation, which is. I don't have an issue with it.
What about the Silverhawks? Weren't those kind of sort of Japanese?
Silverhawks was definitely, I think, drawn by Japanese people.
Right.
Well, Silverhawks, I never saw the cartoon. I had all the toys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had every one of the toys.
It's still a terrible cartoon.
Yeah.
I believe it. But that was back in the time of cartoons like the Centurions. You remember those guys?
Yeah.
Centurions wasn't too bad.
It didn't last long.
What about Mask?
No, it lasted.
Centurions
lasted a long time, I think.
Did it? I need to.
It may have changed from your channel sets because you lived in a day where
I was in Germany.
5 or 6. See, that's even worse. Here we only had 5 or 6 channels at one point, and that's where it got moved over once cable happened.
No, when I would turn 6, we moved to Germany as my dad joined the army, and let me tell you, German cartoons are terrible. They're so terrible. Once you see, you will literally watch a fat Viking talk to another fat Viking about having sex with another fat Viking.
Wait,
as a kid.
What?
Yes, dude. They
Is that Obelix?
Essentially, yes.
Wait. Asterix and Obelix are Belgian, though.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm just making a joke.
But that was so. When I was in Germany, though, and I'm segueing a little bit. I apologize, but I will say that there was no limit to how much sex you could show on TV in Germany.
Oh.
So I would literally be watching a show in German about a mosquito. I didn't understand German my first time. Flip the channel, and there's 2 people going at it, and you're like, oh,
mosquitoes.
For me, believe it or not, that was not a big issue. And we've talked about my history.
Yeah.
That is something even our audience here doesn't know about yet. But we'll touch on that a different episode. Maybe I'll guest star on our show.
We have to talk about that. That's a very important.
But culturally, in Europe, nudity and stuff is not taboo.
Exactly right. Yeah. That is something that really surprised me when the last time I was in Germany. I was 17, I think, and they had a thing where if you were 13, a female who was 13, you could have the right to choose if you wanted to have sex with somebody.
13?
That was your age of consent.
What?
Because there's so much, at least at the time, and I can't speak to now. Back then, they were so much more mature than any American I'd known.
13.
Dude,
no.
I knew a 5-year-old in Germany who spoke 9 languages.
Okay, no, that's awesome, but 13 though? Really?
But, I mean, it's a different life. I mean, they're over there, they're drinking beer at
older life used to be 14 or something.
Exactly.
But forcibly a lot of the times, I mean,
that is also true. But let's get back to the anime because this is a good topic. I think a lot of our folks will connect with that. I grew up watching, the only anime I remember watching that was clearly anime was Robotech.
Oh, so, Robotech.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites, so much that when they released it 20 years ago, I bought it on DVD.
They released it 5 or 6 times.
They have.
You got some
In
books,
fact,
right?
I do have some books, but I also have some memorabilia over here in our studio. But the only other anime that I've ever truly felt attracted to, and I use that word not in a weeaboo sense, but in you never heard weeaboo?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have you heard the term weeaboo? So a weeaboo is an American who attempts to appropriate anime culture as their own culture. Right. And when I say anime culture, I don't mean the culture of liking anime. I mean, you begin to think that you are an anime character.
So you're Naruto living something like
cat people, stuff like that.
Exactly.
What?
So if you watch an anime and you go around making anime noises, and I'm not going to make any direct references, but I've known a few people.
I remember you told.
No, I never told you anything.
No, it's okay.
But no. So
I didn't know they called them weeaboo.
It's weeaboo. Yeah.
Weeaboo?
It's meant to be a derogatory
term. Oh, jeez. Oh, my God. Okay, I saw some pictures.
So Maria has, our producer, has provided some images to Joe.
That just looks like some wrong cosplay and
That's essentially what it is. Yeah. So weeaboos are not ashamed to do cosplay or dress up or make up or whatever.
Does he go to work like that? I mean, okay, I don't. Yeah.
So
they have normal jobs usually.
That is even that they never let on that they are into anime when they're at work.
But if they're dressed like that, I mean,
they don't usually go to those. Are usually conventions,
social life.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and online and stuff like that.
Because it'd be really weird.
My second favorite of all time was Ranma 1. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
So
I'm not a big Ranma fan.
I understand it was I was into it when I was 15 or 16.
It's a very weird anime too because
super weird.
It's the character is a boy and a girl.
Yeah,
but not really a boy and a girl because they just transform back and forth and they're actually 2 different people.
Yeah.
And
so Joe's looking confused.
Yeah.
I am.
So Ranma was a martial artist student. Him and his father went to travel Japan or China, I can't remember.
Yeah.
And they fall into a cursed spring, where if you fall into the spring, you take on the life of whatever drowned there.
Oh.
So.
Okay.
Hoppelsai. That's what she's talking about.
Oh, okay. The old guy who stole panties. I mean.
I hope she's talking about from Ranma. Okay. His name was Hoppelsai.
Okay.
He was actually, so as it turns out, like, the voice actors in that who did the dubbed version.
Yeah.
They all kind of cycle around and do, a lot of jobs.
And stuff.
So the people who did the voices for Ranma also did the voices for, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's like a cat demon. What's his name?
Wait, like an Egyptian cat demon?
No, it's
cat god?
No, he wore a red. I can't remember the name of the show. My wife is going to kill me.
Tenchi?
No, not Tenchi Muyo. It was another one that was famous then.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a girl from Japan who was a bowyer.
What's a bowyer?
She made bows or used bows.
Okay. Right.
Come on, Joe.
Oh, sorry, man. These terms.
Inuyasha or something?
Inuyasha, that's it.
Louise. Oh my
that's
God,
it.
no, not Inuyasha.
Inuyasha. You don't like that?
No.
Why?
I don't know, man. It's just
so I don't get the whole cat
Inuyasha
thing.
into the whole realm of Naruto.
Yeah.
So you don't like Inuyasha?
It's that type of thing that it's just it's not even procedural. Like it's like Bleach. Like you ever watch?
You don't like Bleach?
The first season was cool, and then it was like, blah.
I never watched Bleach.
You don't.
I heard good things about it.
The first season's cool. Then it's what he said. It's just kind of.
So I started watching Inuyasha with the wife because she likes it, or did. I don't know if she still does. And my only issue with it is that I have an issue with cat people. That's because
He's not a cat though.
He's a dog person. It's all the same to me.
What?
It's all the same. When you put on ears and you're a human, you lost me.
Oh,
I won't even throw you a
half
bone.
human, half demon.
Yes, he is. But
demon dog, man, come on.
He was a demon dog. Actually, he actually was.
Half and half.
Yeah. So it was that for me is just not subject matter I enjoy. And I've met people in real life who want to act like they're cat people, and it makes me want to choke them out.
Okay.
So I can't deal with it in anime either. But what about you, John? What's your favorite?
My favorite? I'm thinking about it. So from all the stuff I saw when I was a kid, I can't remember the name of it, but it was sort of a steampunky series, very short, and in the end it had to do with something similar like the whole One Piece idea. But in the sky, so instead of having like ships in the water, it was everything in the sky. But I can't remember for the life of me the name of it. But
is it a movie or is it a
no?
series?
It was a series, but it was short. It was very short. I think it was maybe 1 or 2 seasons long. And it was basically steampunky in the way that everybody had these ships that they would, and it's very similar in the idea of what you said. I've never seen One Piece. From the way you described it, it seemed very similar.
I think of close enough as Last Exile.
Yeah, that's a wow. Damn, exactly. My God.
He said he liked anime.
I can see that's.
I used to watch a lot of anime when I was young.
That's the one.
I slowed down on it.
Yeah, so for whatever reason, I was younger, and that's that same store that I used to go called Visual Arts back home.
It's a good anime.
Yeah, and I was like, oh wow.
I've never heard of it. I will say that growing up, I was very much into the more violent stuff, like.
Well, then how can't you like Dragon Ball Z?
Well, Dragon Ball Z is not violent. You can't be violent.
Version, it's kind of violent.
You can't be violent if you're charging up for 17 episodes.
Okay, I gotta say.
They always look like they have to go to the bathroom real bad.
Is that not how you would charge up, though?
I don't know how I would charge up, to be honest.
Okay, but
I doubt it would be that face.
But new stuff. Oh, let me rephrase that. Not new stuff, but as an adult, Cowboy Bebop.
So I watched a little bit of Cowboy Bebop. I've never really gotten into it, but I didn't hate what I saw. And that's being fair. Like when I was younger and I started watching it, I was a little flippant about how I spent my attention. So I will say that it didn't push me away. Some of the things I'm interested in seeing and looking into now. My wife is a huge lover of Fairy Tail.
Fairy Tail?
The manga's good. I'm not.
She said the same thing.
I'm not big on the anime.
We started watching the anime because I don't spend time reading enough to make manga on my list. But
so the name's Fairy Tale.
Yeah, it's basically it's a world of guilds that come together to fight.
I'm sorry, I thought you
meant a bunch
of
mage guilds.
Okay. I thought you actually meant like a fairy tale anime named Blah, so I didn't know the actual name.
No, it's called Fairy Tale.
I mean, based off of both of you guys' like preferences, I would say Mobile Suit Gundam Iron Blooded Orphans is the best thing that would mix with both of your worlds.
Iron Blooded Orphans?
No, Mobile Suit Gundam, right?
It's Mobile Suit Gundam, but Iron Blooded Orphans is the series part of it.
Oh, okay.
So you have to see the previous ones to understand it?
It's a separate series. They have Gundams in it.
Mm-hmm.
So normally most of the series say they're Gundam blah blah or Mobile Suit Gundam blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So this series right here is kind of up both of your alleys because if you like Cowboy Bebop, there's a lot of that gangster space stuff type deal,
space cowboy thing.
And then you like Robotech, so there's mechs in there and there's a lot of story elements that it's violent and it's not your average like.
When you say it's violent, is there blood?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a plus.
There's a lot of deaths.
I can't believe I said that.
There's a lot of deaths and a lot of deaths that mean something.
Okay, that's good.
And it's not just like, oh, my sensei died, I'm gonna fight now.
Mm.
Oh, this guy, like the deaths are emotional. Like, I mean, if you watch the whole series, you'll be like, wow, I can't believe they killed that guy. I can't believe.
That's great.
He had this guy. I see why. Stuff like that.
That's really good. I will say that while I loved Robotech, I will not make the claim that it was good. Like, it was just really appealing, transforming airplanes to robots. It was one of the first I'd seen that was not the Transformers. As an American child, and I'd be interested to see how other people feel about this, but one thing I noticed is that the good guys in American cartoons always win. Doesn't matter ever what the scenario is. Oh. I stopped watching cartoons the day that the Wile E. Coyote caught the Roadrunner, had him hanging up on a rope, and he decided to celebrate by painting a picture of himself next to the hanging Roadrunner. And then the picture came to life and whooped his ass. And I was like, done. I can't do it no more.
Well, I mean, think about it though. Like, if you think about
it's for kids.
But there's more to unravel there, man.
Is it?
Yeah. Like psychologically, man. Think about it.
I kind of want to punch you.
No, go ahead. It happens a lot.
It happens a lot. You're right.
But what I was trying to
I'm only kidding, though.
No. I mean, what I was trying to get to is a lot of the times, specifically with cartoons, the whole idea of them is to be sort of a morale base for kids, right? Because they try to give you a foundation. The reason
morale or moral?
A morale. Moral foundation. You're right.
Moral. Okay.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, back in those days, in my mind, I think cartoons were trying to relay a story, as like fables used to do for the older folks.
Yeah.
And similar in the same
those
way.
Radio stories?
Yeah. No. I mean, like books. Like I'm particularly speaking about when you're reading to children, to kids, you're trying to inlay in them via storytelling a sort of narrative that constructs a moral foundation for them, right? So usually you see that the good guy wins, right? And I get your point. That's not really based in reality. It's not. Well, I think the good guy's not always going to win.
That is true. I see where you're going, and I agree with that. In mass for most of the stuff that's there. But I think there are also one of the reasons why, in my mind, why our society is the way it is now, with so many people feeling like they are owed something.
Oh yeah,
is because they are not taught the same lessons that we were when we were growing up.
So to your point, that's exactly what I was getting to. Okay. The fact that for us, we had these, not just cartoons, anime for you, but just these general stories. And you talk about a bunch of other stuff. The writing was different. And I don't mean that say that I'm an old timey folk. No, you get what I mean.
No, I totally get you.
Aspect of when we were kids, particularly most of us are almost the same age or close to it. And the things back then were different, and again, I'm not trying to sound like, I had to walk 15 miles. No, I'm just saying, like, it was different in the sense that you can actually tell there was more moral values, right?
Yeah, I can't argue that, but I think I will tell you, as a child, it's stuck in my mind even to this day. The first time I ever saw a bad guy win was in G.I. Joe. And it didn't happen until Serpentor, and I sound so old. I understand.
No, come on.
But Serpentor stuck a snake staff inside Duke's chest. And that's the first time I ever saw blood in G.I. Joe. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. They just killed Joe or Duke. And I was like, this show just became the most amazing show I've ever seen. Just because a bad guy won for once. Like I remember watching, what was his name? Cobra Commander. Mm-hmm. He was so stupid 99 times, but then every once in a while he'd get a plan where you're like, that's pretty evil genius. And then it would fail from some stupid crap, and you're like,
the bolt fell off in my car.
Exactly. It's like, oh, okay. But see, Robotech was entertaining because it was the first I'd ever seen. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't good because it was most of the characters were kind of whiny, and it was arguably Rick, the lead character, was a young guy, a child. Mm-hmm. But they had a death in there, and that was probably one of the first cartoons I ever saw an honest-to-God death. And it blew my mind, and that's what got me attracted to anime when I was younger. Cool. I remember watching, I think they just remastered another release of it, Bubblegum Crisis. You ever watch any of that?
Wow, yeah.
That's old school stuff, too.
Yeah.
And I'm old.
No, but I mean, so it's interesting you say that, right? Because, I mean, if you talk about the way we were growing up and stuff, like, you think of how media, how in general these stories influence our mind. It's funny when you start looking at manga, anime, and some of those stories are much deeper, more complicated,
adult oriented.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, if you look at the differences in cultures, right? You could see a lot, just from looking at the stories that we abide to when we were kids. So it's interesting. I mean, just by looking at something like that and seeing how all these different things shaped us when we were kids. And for me personally, like, I never knew that. I mean, of course, I knew you liked One Piece, but I never knew you were. That. I mean, well, yeah, we talked about it before.
You never knew what?
Your Bubblegum Crisis.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, wow.
I know it's old. It's one of those things, but I remember watching it because I'd never seen anything like it before.
Yeah.
And I will say, I want to throw a question to you. It's really a two-parter. Of all of the people that I have known in my life who watch as many movies as I have, two of them are at the table with me. And that is both of you. So, Joe, you have seen a lot of obscure crap just like me. And Yuli, you and I have been together through many, many different movies, and we've had multiple conversations about these movies. So my first question is, from a Laotian standpoint, close proximity to Japan, or closer proximity to Japan, does that change the nature of their culture as far as from a manga or anime standpoint? Is that all over the place there?
I'm trying to gauge what you're asking.
So it's closer to Japan than we are. Is it more heavily influenced with the manga and the anime? Like, do you see that more like on the billboards?
No, I mean, kids there do read manga and stuff there, but again, this is the translation thing. Like, who's willing to pay for translations and who's willing to create the content?
I guess that makes sense.
Even if you're close enough to, say, I think actually Japan right now, most of manga, there's a lot of Spanish following and French I've seen. Mm-hmm. So
really,
yeah, a lot of them. So like, I think if you go to France, there's a lot of manga there. Like we were just there, and
you were in France.
We were in Paris for a day.
For a day?
Yeah, we were supposed to go for 2 days, one flying in and one flying back.
Yeah.
When we went to Croatia,
nice.
But even looking at the bookcase that was at the place we stayed, 5 of those rows were manga, and then I think it was like magazines and then other books.
Yeah, there's a huge culture over there.
There's a whole huge culture in those different areas. So in Laos, when I went there, my cousins were reading mangas, and one of their favorites was Detective Conan, which is pretty much
Detective Conan.
Yeah, which is based off of pretty much Arthur Conan Doyle.
It seems like what's the word? An oxymoron. I think you
Conan.
did it. So it's not Conan the Barbarian.
Detective Conan.
I have a new purpose in life.
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, right? Is the writer of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
So
no, you're right.
So that's why they call him Detective Conan.
When you said Detective Conan, I just saw a guy walking around with a sword. I think he did it.
Now I will never in my entire life be able to unsee that. It's forever engraved in my mind.
There you go. See, now I have a new purpose in life. I am going to make the manga Detective Conan the Barbarian.
That's amazing.
That will be great.
That's one of those
we'll make manga.
That's one of those Wheel of Fortune puzzles, right?
I guess
where you have to do two different people, like it's like Detective Conan and then Conan the Barbarian.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They do. Yeah.
They do those.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So that's interesting.
They're reading that. But I mean, again, I was like, so which book are you in? They're like, I think they're on like, say, book 60, 61, when even though they're so close in proximity, they still were not caught up. So I think at that time, Detective Conan had like 200 manga booklets.
So are they transferring them over to French, or are the French learning Japanese, or is it?
In Laos, they are translating them into Thai, I believe.
Okay.
Because again, Laos is a small country that nobody knew about, so translated to the place that has more money or more known culture, so they translate in Thai. So a lot of people in Laos actually learn Laotian and Thai at the same time.
So why do you think that anime has caught on, like in the fire that it has been? As it stands right now, it's all over the place. Everybody's heard of it, or watched some of it.
I mean, the biggest two elements is just the animation quality itself, and then the story element. Again, going to something like Sword Art Online. I mean, we as gamers could only fathom getting something like that, right? We can really, oh, cool, this is it, and then we can actually see who can really game the best, and it won't be like, oh, that guy's just really good at moving his mouse really quick, or stuff like that. So I think that's pretty much where I'm with anime, and that's like, it's not that I don't have favorite like American cartoons, but story elements,
complexity
more
character,
more mature content. You were saying Ninja Scroll.
Yep.
Think of like a ninja show here. It'd probably be Ninja Turtles.
I grew up on Ninja Turtles.
Ninja Turtles not a bad show. I'm just saying that's what you equate ninjas to, unless you're watching.
I feel like I have to sign this episode off with a cowabunga now. But that's a whole different. No, that's very insightful. I think I've seen a lot of anime that has unique storylines or storylines that I think a lot of people find interesting or just generally bizarre, because that seems to be the stages of anime. It's either dark and twisted like Japanese culture is. I said that wrong. Japanese cinematic is, not Japanese culture. That's weird, but to an American, but it's still fascinating to most Americans too. Like most Japanese cinematography is very dark and gory and explicitly not in favor of the good guy. It's like the Japanese epic is almost always ends in tragedy, which I think we're starting to see kind of a transgression of that moving to American film is starting to do that now.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
You, and I don't mean to bring information that we shouldn't bring, but you have a son.
Yes.
And I've always been curious, how do you see the comparison of what we grew up with what they're growing up with now?
If I'm being honest, I can sum it up in 2 words. Fucking terrible.
Like bleeping, you mean?
No, I'm not gonna bleep it. The stuff that he watches, I've tried to give it a fair shot and watch it, and it's not him, of course. He's a product of this era. Yeah. So I don't blame him at all. But the stuff that gets watched, it's just like, in my time, this stuff I feel like would not have made it to children. But then again, to be fair, and I'm not omnipotent, I look back at some of the stuff that we grew up with, and I'm thinking, in retrospect, that was probably suspect,
Well, but
like the Snorks. Or
that was weird. Or what is it? The one that only had one lady in the whole thing, and they were small and they were blue.
Smurfs?
Yeah. That was
How do
weird,
you not
man.
know the name of the Smurfs?
I forgot the Smurfs, man.
But you know what the beauty of the Smurfs is? Is now as an adult, if you analyze it, it is
disturbing.
nightmarish.
Yes, it
so
is.
that's great.
Because they
As a
wanted
kid,
to eat them.
yeah,
Yeah, Gargamel. Yeah,
well,
yeah.
not only that, but there's 50 Smurfs and one female.
Yeah. Let's see.
Two.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
There's two.
There's 2 now.
Oh wait, what?
There's the little girl Smurf
Smurfette.
too. No,
Smurfette.
there's Smurfette and then there's a little kid.
Oh my
Is it
god.
baby Smurf?
Oh jeez.
There's the 3 kids and it's the tomboy girl.
So,
I forget her name.
Oh no.
there's only 2 ways you can interpret that. Either Smurfette is a hoe, or they're asexual,
Well, that's a good
which
point.
would have rendered Gargamel's plan to create Smurfette stupid.
That's true.
See?
I forget what they
See?
say,
It's
but I believe
Mind-boggling.
Smurfs are created somehow. I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're like
Papa
grown
Smurf
out of the dirt like
yeah,
orcs.
yeah. He can grow them somehow.
Yeah, that's how he
organically.
made Papa Smurf. Smurfette.
But
Yeah.
back to the whole topic of kids these days, and I hate to sound like an old person, but realistically though, I mean, it's something that we have to take into account. It's a very interesting topic. If you
What do
compare
you mean take it into account?
So the way our younger generations are growing up, we had, He-Man, we had Smurfs, fine, that's fine. We had Mask, we had G.I. Joe, we had all these different variations, similar to what Yuli was saying. Where I come from, there was a lot of Spanish anime that got translated either into because it was very popular in Spain and Mexico, so that would get hoisted on our local channels like Rurouni Kenshin, all that other stuff.
Yeah.
So there was all these things that we had that influenced us while growing up, and even at a younger age, I myself had a very different growing up. So I was led to see things that you would not usually let kids see at a
Like-
very young age.
Like what?
Like pretty
violence?
much any and every movie ever made.
Okay.
So for me, I had a very different upbringing. But then, I
I
started
was
to,
very sheltered.
so, sure. That's an understatement.
Yeah.
Sheltered in a theater kind of side,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
but long story short, yeah. So, let me just preface this. Do you guys remember Legend?
The movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember what happened in Legend?
I've actually never seen Legend.
Oh
I
my
know,
God.
I know what it.
Tom Cruise?
I know it had Tom Cruise and some like Red Devil guy.
It was
but I've never watched
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry, thank you.
Did you know it was PG?
I don't remember much about it, so
So I just say as an experiment, watch that movie again and then fathom the fact that it's rated PG. It's awesome.
well,
But okay, so back to the kids thing.
It's hard for me anyway because I've watched animes and stuff that
Yeah.
were rated R and
they're not rated R, and then you watch PG, and it is.
I mean, I'm just. So the reason I'm mentioning this is, as a staple of our upbringing, we had a variety of things that were very colorful, that had a lot of interesting stories, very complex characters. Nowadays, to your point, does it seem similar or is it different?
So, to be fair, right? You're forcing me to be objective in this, and I appreciate that. As I look at his cartoons, and I think that the ones that I see, they're absolute garbage. But there's a part of me that thinks you only think they're garbage because they don't look like your cartoons.
Okay.
And that's a progressive element in people or a regressive element that as you get older, anything new starts to pale in comparison to the things that you experience.
Okay.
And I think that's a human thing that happens to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
The recognition that it's maybe not. So to cross genres a little bit, music is where it happens the most.
Oh my God.
Now, fortunately, I'm a person where I listen to literally every type of music and can say that there's quite a bit of every genre that I love. Like Frank Sinatra, I love a lot of the rap that's out now, as long as it's not mumble rap. I like rock music. I like classic music. I like classical music. I like everything. I'm not one of those people that goes, back in my day, we didn't have this trash. But I do that for cartoons. I don't know why.
Well, realistically, look at the stories, right? I've seen very little of it in passing most of the time because I myself don't have children. But from what I've observed, story elements are lacking. If it wasn't for anime, I think the complexity would be lost in a lot of ways. And similarly, I believe specifically in popular culture, when we stay away from so kids, cartoons, then move up to adults, young adults, you start seeing what they're seeing in popular culture, like these reality TV shows, all this crap. And really, what are they learning from that? You know,
from reality TV shows.
So long story short, what I'm trying to say is the individualization. Like, people are being taught this idea of the only thing that matters is the idea of individual, right? Individual celebrity, individual. Like, you keep going in this whole very weird.
Absolutely, I'm
get what I mean?
going to agree because, and I am guilty of perpetuating this myself because I love YouTube and everything. You know, it's the biggest collection of knowledge, or I don't want to say animated, but
well, it's just
you understand what I mean. Animated. It's the biggest collection of animated entertainment in the world.
Information.
But the truth is it does exactly what you said.
Yeah.
These kids, and I've seen my son do the same.
Yeah.
Where they get on and they get on YouTube and they start watching these people who act out and they become famous, and now they feel they have to do the same.
Exactly.
So you can go on YouTube right now, and I guarantee you'll find 50,000 people who are trying to be famous by doing things that they've seen elsewhere.
Right. Kind of skews the whole aspect of what's important in life.
And for the record, we're on YouTube.
Well, I want to step in on Jose's point of, if you think a kid's whatever they're watching is kind of like not up to your standard, and even when you look back, but there's a difference because now you're looking for something because you are older now.
Exactly.
You are looking and you think you want to find something that you actually like.
That is 100% correct.
Right.
And if you go and watch, okay, AMC has that movie pass, so I've been watching all the movies. If you go watch a movie and you're just like sitting there sometimes and you're like, this movie is terrible.
Yeah.
It's garbage. And it's a kid's movie.
Yeah.
And you're just like, this is terrible compared to what I've seen. But then when you watch it and then a little kid just laughs and like cracks up about something, and you're like, dude, that's so like kiddish. But when they laugh, you feel the same way they feel. And you're like, I see where, you know, whoever wrote this or whoever made it this is for them. And when, like, say, Charles' son, or Bo's son, sorry.
No, it's fine. Joe's he's made sure that our audience knows my name. You want to give him my social?
but
just teasing.
He could be watching something, and he's just watching it. You're over there analyzing it, and like, oh man,
and
why'd he go that way when you know that that's the right door?
And that's absolutely true, and that's why I say I have the objectivity now.
Yeah.
That when I walk in there and he's watching one of his shows that he likes to watch is there's a series of unicorns, and they're all the artwork is kind of boxy, and I watched it with him once, and I was like, there is no point to this show.
Okay.
There's no story. It's literally about them screwing each other over every episode and just trying to get the best of each other.
Okay.
But now as I look back, and like I said, you look at something like the Snorks. I don't remember shit about the Snorks, except that they had those weird tubes under it.
They were, okay, so I do remember.
They were the aquatic Smurf. Yeah.
Pretty much. I was going to say.
They did try to teach you something as a kid. Like, try to share, you know,
the Snorks, I don't remember. I remember.
All of our cartoons kind of had those same mentality. Try to
be a nice person.
Try to give you a moral compass that's not go kill somebody, go do something, go steal, blah, blah.
Well, see, I look at my comics, my cartoons. Like, he mentioned He-Man, which would get eviscerated on if it was on now because no, because it would get eviscerated because he's half naked, and it's all about a man who has all these muscles and he's saving the princess, and which is why Mario has taken such a huge change in his games because it's. I don't know if you know this.
I do not.
This most recent game, Mario rescued Peach again, the princess, and then he proposed to her, and she said no.
Okay.
So, yeah. And Bowser proposed to her, and she said no.
What?
So, we're not going to go down the whole rabbit hole that is that. That's a whole different discussion. But, so, we're coming close to the end of our time. And I've learned a lot about both your history. I've learned some stuff about Laos, and I've learned some stuff about anime. In closing, I want to say that for the folks who are listening, I know a lot of us don't partake in anime, or you don't watch anything that's anime because maybe you have negative feelings about it, or there's a stigma attached to it. And there is a stigma for people who take it too far, but that is true of anything. So the old saying, everything in moderation applies to everything, to movies, to anime, to reading, to everything.
Including moderation.
including no. But so I almost gave you credit, but then you had to go and ruin it. But it's definitely worth your time to try and watch something. The way that our world is evolving, this is too big of a media for you to miss out on. Like I said, I understand there's a stigma. You don't have to be part of the stigma. You don't have to take it to an extreme. Things like Howl's Moving Castle, things like Princess Mononoke, things like Grave of Fireflies, these are all tremendous stories that deserve your attention. Even if it's just the one where you sit down and give it a try, give it a try. Now, that being said, Julian, what would be anything you can say to the people out there in the world, anything at all, what would be the final thing of advice or suggestion that you would give to this audience?
I mean, I'm going to go off of your thing. I'm going to say understand. Just try to understand people. Even if you have different opinions, you can come together and still understand each other. Even if you hate what he says, there's still, you have to find the same understanding and truth in all things. So just understand.
I agree with this. Joe?
Yeah.
Last minute thoughts?
Well, if anything has taught us anything, we can't really learn from anybody unless we start looking at what they grew up with, right? So
I think you didn't say anything. If anything taught us anything, everybody is everybody. What?
All right. So I'm guessing I'm sending them the Beatles now.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. No,
Music,
No. So what I was trying to say is, like, if when we're growing up, everything that we see and watch and hear and listen and read kind of makes us who we are. So
Sure.
if anything, if we look at all these different cartoons, animes, stories, we get a little slice of everybody's culture.
Sure.
So in other words, even if you've never going to have the ability to travel somewhere, right? At least you could learn a little bit of a person's culture by experimenting, like you said, and like Yuli said, and these different stories.
I agree. These animes and these mangas will provide you that same kind of, if for whatever reason, I totally agree with our last guest star, Pepper, when she said, get a passport, go see the world. If for whatever reason you can't, exploring it by proxy is the best alternative. And expose yourself to media from other countries. Expose yourself to thoughts from other nationalities, ethnicities, everything.
Oh, yeah.
So, that being said, I think we'll close it out. Yuli, I really appreciate you showing up. It was a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no problem. As always, guys, thanks for showing up. If you guys have any additional ideas for stories or things you would like to see, feel free to send us an email at boandjoepodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Bo.
I'm Joe.
Thanks for listening.